Good morning, everyone. Welcome to LisaBug Yoga, Hips and Hearts. So what we're working on in the month of March are hip openers and heart openers. And that's just the main gist of our practice. We'll also be moving through the entire body and focusing on other areas as well. But hip openers are hips are typically tight, so that's something good that we can work on throughout the whole month to have a series of movements, as well as heart openers, which brings those shoulder blades back, brings us into good posture, and alleviates tightness through the pecs and through the fronts of the shoulders. So what I want to start with today is a standing hip warm-up, and this is going to bring us into some balance work as well and alignment work. So I have a small chair for balance. I have my yoga strap and blocks that we may use today, and perhaps a little cushion to sit on or use as a prop as well. So what I want you to do is just shift your body weight into your left foot, stand nice and tall, pick up your right knee, bring it forward, and then swivel it out. And then as you lower it, step on it, shift your body weight over to the right foot, pick up your left knee, swivel it out, and then step down. And your hands can be at your hips. Your arms can be extended out. You can be into prayer position. And I want you to go slowly and notice what your hips are doing and what the legs are doing as you do this movement. So as the knee comes forward, this brings us into hip flexion. As the leg opens out, it's a little bit of a rotation, but in anatomical terms, it's known as horizontal abduction. And then we're making a circular movement as well, and this is known as circumduction. And the hips are a ball and socket joint. So if the muscles are not extremely tight, your hips should be able to move in all directions with a good freedom of movement, a good range of motion. But over time, those muscles get tight and we lose some of that flexibility and range of motion in our hips. Let's do one more on each side. Abs are in and nicely engaged. And then we'll reverse this. So rather than lifting the knee forward to start, I want you to rotate the knee out, swivel it forward, and come down. Rotate out and down. And I want you to think in your mind tree pose as you start. So the knee points out as far as you can to the side as the leg lifts. If you need that little chair or your wall for balance to help you with this, do that today, because I want you to focus more on control here and range of motion. We can also focus on our posture. And then where we're looking, I'm sure you're probably looking most likely at the screen, but you don't have to. Once you get this movement going, you can pick out maybe a spot a few feet ahead of you on the floor to focus on that balance. Let's do two more on each side here. And maybe you can start to feel those hips warming up. We're getting some synovial fluid to the joint, some blood to the muscles so we can stretch. One more each side. And then relax. So now we will come into tree pose, a standing balance pose with the right leg being the free leg first, the left leg being the supporting leg. So we'll shift our body weight into that left leg, rotate out the right knee as far as you can to that right side without moving your pelvis in that direction. And then your foot can stay on the floor if you need to, or start to slide it up to your ankle, or maybe to the middle of the calf. We try to stay away from actually putting the foot on the inside of the knee joint. because we want to protect that joint from any pressure. But you can certainly bring it up to the inner thigh as well, if that's a good position for you in tree. Once you have this, let's go ahead and open our arms into, into a nice chest expansion. So I'd like you to pull your shoulder blades back, sometimes referred to as goalpost arms or W arms. Elbows slightly below the level of the shoulders. And this is your tree in terms of where your knee is pointing. In a perfect world, it would be directly out to the side, but not all of us have that hip flexibility here to be able to open that knee and to open the hip that far. Let's take 2 more breaths. Press palms and relax that foot down to the mat. I don't know about you, but I felt a lot of work in that standing leg, those muscles of the feet and the ankle moving up through that calf and even into the hip. So let's do it on the other side. We're going to rotate the knee out, and I can tell already this hip is not as flexible to move in that direction. So I'm going to keep my frontal hip bones facing forward, open the knee out as far as it will go, and then slide that foot into a nice comfortable position. Now we're activating the glute here, so I want you to feel some tension in that muscle to keep the knee open. It's not a relaxed position, it's very active through your hips. If you feel comfortable coming back into that chest expansion, we'll hold, pulling those shoulders back. Try not to allow your shoulders to creep up and hunch. Press them down, down, so your neck is nice and long. And then we're retracting the elbows behind us as well as the bottom edges of your shoulder blades. The breath moves. We find our focal point, our drishti, and we breathe in and out through the nose. You'll feel a little tiny movement here and there through that standing leg. If you fall out of the pose, take your time to come back in. No rush to get there. And 2 more breaths on this side. And then we'll press the palms together. And then release back down. Maybe a little shake out of the legs a little bit. And then separate your feet nice and wide. Turn the toes out slightly. We'll take a nice big inhale up to 5-pointed star, stretch. Exhale into goddess squat. So as we come down, I want you to point both of your knees out. So this is opening up through our hips. Sometimes when we're tight through our hips, our knees want to drop in this way. So I want you to press out nice and wide. Goddess squat, we can have the palms up, we can have the palms facing forward. Once again, we're in that chest expansion. Pull both shoulder blades back. And we're going to move in and out of this pose from 5-pointed star on an inhale, stretch up and reach. Exhale, sink down, press your knees out and back toward the back wall. Pull your shoulder blades back and your elbows back behind you. And then move through this at your own pace. Inhaling on the reach, exhaling to sink down. And I want you to notice if your knees are pointing in the same direction as your feet. So sometimes the problem with goddess squat is we turn our feet really turning out and our knees can't go as far as our feet are going. So if you're pretty tight in your hips, I want you to turn your feet in a little bit so that your knees can line up. And we'll take 3 more. Inhale. Exhale. Open those hips. Pull the knees back. 2 more. Nice chest expansion. And last one. and hold. Press the palms back at heart center. And we'll rise up to straighten the legs. Turning your left foot in so it's in alignment with the side edge of your mat. Turn your right foot out and come into a warrior two. So I have a pretty narrow stance right now, but we can definitely widen the stance to where you are comfortable in your warrior two. Now this knee, again, wants to come forward. So I want you to activate your glute and pull this knee out, just as you did with tree pose, just as you did with goddess squat for your warrior two. And we have a little bit of a technique called spiral, where we pull the knee out, but we press down into the big toe, which is really kind of a hard activation to do, because when we pull our knee back, we don't want to roll to the outside of our arch, right? We still want to have our foot to be equally planted into the mat. So press down into the ball mound of your big toe, but pull this knee out at the same time. It's a lot to think about. And breathe. Shoulder blades are down. And then I want you to bring your arms behind your back and interlace your fingers together. Now, when we come into this chest expansion, sometimes this doesn't feel comfortable to interlace the hands. So you can grab hold of your yoga strap and hold it behind you, or you can just place your hands at your hips and broaden through the chest and pull those elbows back. Now we have a lot of activation going on, pressing into the ball mound of that right foot, pulling the right knee back, expanding through the chest, maybe lifting the arms up away from the back side of the body. And then we can look towards the right for a little bit of a neck stretch. 2 breaths. And 1 more breath. Bringing the head back to neutral, releasing the arms, and then pressing up to straighten the right leg. We'll pivot that foot, turn it in so it's nice and parallel to the side of your mat. Turn your right foot out, and then bend that knee and pull the knee back toward that back wall. Now, a lot of yoga instructors say your hips have to be completely facing forward. Well, sometimes when that happens, if we're tight here, then our knee will fall forward. So I want you to find the position from your knee first. So pull it back, get it back as far as you can, and then let your hips be in a nice relaxed position. So it's okay if they can be slightly on an angle, but try to bring your shoulders to come to the front. So you might be in a slight rotation, just a little bit through the spine. We'll reach out. Now press down into the ball mound of that left big toe as you're pulling this knee back. You're feeling that glute working. Bring that intensity all the way up through the crown of the head, and then interlace your hands behind your back, or hold onto your strap, or hands at your hips, and stretch here. So we kind of are building this from the foundation, moving up, starting at the foot, push down into the ball mound of that big toe, move it into the knee to bring it back, align your hips, align your shoulders, and then expand through the chest, and we'll look to the left to add in a little neck stretch. And if you can think about one more thing, engage the Mula Bandha, the pelvic floor. 1 more breath. We'll bring the head to neutral, relaxing through the arms, and then straighten the left leg, pivot that foot forward, take a nice big breath in, stretch, and exhaling down. All right, we're going to be working on a pose today called cow face and spending quite a bit of time in cow face. And I'm going to show you some ways to comfortably do this pose starting on your back before we come to a seated position. So let's come on down onto your back. Make yourself comfortable. So if you need a little pillow for the back of the head, you need a little blanket to lay your hips on, just allow yourself to feel very, very comfortable as you come on down. Now, what I'd like you to do first is we're going to do some windshield wipers with the legs. So separate your feet as wide as your mat is wide, and your knees are also that wide as well. And we're going to start to drop both knees at the same time over to the right, and then back up and over to the left. And for some reason, my quads are really tight today. So as I come over, I'm feeling a pull right in the front of my thigh on the leg that's the hip is lifting. And it's okay if your hip lifts. You don't want to keep your pelvis flat on the ground. You want to let your pelvis roll. And then if you feel comfortable, I want you to come into that goalpost arms for a little bit of a heart opener, a little bit of a chest expansion here. And as you go to one side, say you're going to the left, I want you to tighten the right gluteal muscle. And then as your knees drop over to the right, tighten your left gluteal muscle. And we're just moving at a gentle pace, not too quickly, but not slow either, just keeping that movement going. It should feel very relaxing, a nice release through the lumbar spine as well. Shoulders stay planted in the mat. We'll do 2 more to each direction. One more each side. And then find a nice even position. Keep your legs, again, your feet as wide as your mat, your knees as wide as your mat. Bring your arms right next to the sides of the body, and then tuck and roll up into a hip bridge. Tighten both glutes at the top, elevating your hips as high as you feel comfortable. And then roll yourself back down 1 vertebra at a time, tucking that tailbone under until you find again a neutral spine at the bottom. Then tuck again, roll up. Feeling the strength in the glutes and in the backs of the legs. And we'll do this a total of 5 repetitions at your own pace. A little bit of a pause at the top of that bridge. Make sure your hips are level. Head is neutral. And 2 more repetitions. And this is moving us from hip flexion to hip extension. Last time, rolling up. And rolling down. Now, once you come back to neutral, keep your feet wide as your mat is, but let your knees drop in to touch each other. Some people can touch easily and feel no pull or no stretch. Others can't touch at all, and they feel a real tightness in their hips. So I want you to see kind of where you are at with this position as you roll the thighs inward. And then open both knees out and let your feet roll out. And then bring your knees to touch and open out. And the bottom of your foot is coming off the mat a little bit as you roll those knees out. So you're not keeping your feet totally flat. Allow your foot to move and your ankle to move. And we'll do 2 more, opening and closing. And 1 more. Close together and relax. So we'll start to come into a version of cow face. I'd like you to close your feet together. Knees are closed together. And take your right knee, lift it up, and cross that knee over the left thigh, and you want the knees to cross above, or you want the right knee to cross above the left knee. So what this does is it brings the right foot over to the left side of the body. From this position, I'd like you to engage your core and lift your legs up off the mat. Now, if you take your left hand, you might be able to reach your right foot or ankle. If you cannot reach it, you can grab your yoga strap, make a little loop, and loop it around that ankle, not the foot itself, because you don't want to pull against your foot, and then pull the strap toward you. So what we're doing is we're rotating that knee outward a little bit, and then flex your foot so that your knee is protected from rotating. I want you to feel this rotation from your hip. You might have to bring your knees closer to your chest to get that foot, and I want you to notice the stretch you feel in the hip and the glute. Now, some of you might be able to go ahead and flex the other foot and reach up and grab both ankles. If you cannot, that's okay, because I want to mostly focus on that right side. So this pose, cow face, is done usually seated. So if you are sitting on your glutes, sitting up, then what happens is your heels are down toward your glutes because your legs are on the mat. So I want you to pull those heels down as close as you can to your glutes, and then we will hold. And again, if you just have the right side or you're using your yoga strap on that right side, that's absolutely fine. And we'll hold this stretch. So if this is pretty difficult for you, when we get to do this up to a seated position, then you are going to come back down to your mat and do it again, just like we are here, because that's your starting point for this pose. Let's hold just a couple more breaths, because I want to be able to do the other side. Give that left side some extra attention. And if you have both feet, you'll relax the left foot first with the right hand, and then relax the right foot from the left hand. Bring your left foot back down to find the mat, and then uncross the right leg. All right, so how did that feel in your hips? Was it super intense? Not too bad. Feel pretty good is what I'm hoping. Let's take the left knee, bring it up, cross it above the right knee. So you have your legs folded and crossed, squeezing them together a little bit with your inner thighs, pull your knees up. Now this time you're going to take your left hand and see if you can reach, right hand, see if you can reach your left foot. The one that's on the top is the one that's easiest to get. If you can't get this left foot with your right hand, you're going to loop your yoga strap and hold on to it and pull that toward you. And then if you can get the other foot as well, sometimes what happens is you need to actually curl yourself up off the mat. You can reach up there, get those feet, and then you can lay your head back down. And we can play with this position our feet are in. So we can pull them away from each other a little bit, closer to each other a little bit, but ultimately we want to mimic what this would look like if we were sitting on the floor. So hug those knees in towards your chest, flex your feet so you're protecting your knees, and you want to feel this in your hips. And then relax and breathe. And again, it's okay if you just have the left side. We'll work here from our starting point. Slow breaths. And these hip openers are really wonderful to release tension, also emotional tension, mental tension, things that we're carrying around with us that no longer serve us. We can just let all kinds of things go here as we're letting our hips stretch. We carry a lot of things in our hips, and we can just allow it to let go. Let's take one more breath here on this side. And then we'll relax that left hand from the right foot first, and the right hand from the left foot. Relax your right foot down to the mat and uncross your legs. And just notice how your hips are feeling. You can do a couple more windshield wipers or hug the knees to your chest, maybe some egg beater circles. Anything that feels good for you just to loosen everything back up. And then we will be coming up to a seated position. And once again, if you found the last series that we did difficult, stay on your back and we'll go ahead and do it again from a reclining position. So if you want to try it from a seated position, we're going to get into it a very interesting way, which I find to be the easiest way for me to take my time and make sure everything feels okay for me. So what we want to do is to start with our right knee in front of the left. So I'm going to have you actually come to your hands and knees first. And then bring your right knee forward on the mat. And then take your right ankle over to the left side of your mat. So you're going to have to lift up your left knee a little bit to do that. And then bring your left ankle over to the side. It almost looks like you're coming into pigeon, right? And then tuck your left knee behind your right and open your left foot out to the other side of your mat. So this is cow face from your hands and knees. And then what I want you to do is to slowly walk your hands back, and your knees are going to lift away from the mat, and see how far you can guide yourself back to sit. And you might be like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to sit back and do this. If you can, go ahead and sit. If you can't, then that's where you're going to use your yoga blocks or your blanket. I'm going to sit my blanket back behind me and see if I can sit on that blanket. Okay, now I can find a place where I can be comfortable in this pose. And then we'll relax and hold. Now it's okay if you are on your back doing it again with your right leg crossed on top, or if you're actually right here up on your hands and knees or slightly guiding yourself back. I want you to come into the stretch that feels okay for you today. If you are feeling any pain at all in your knees or any twisting in your knees, then this is not the one for you to take. And let's just stay wherever you're at for about 3 more breaths. And 2. Last breath in. And then if you're on your back, you'll go through that same process of uncrossing. If you're seated, walk your hands forward. You can remove the prop from behind you. And then the left leg is going to release out first. Then the right leg comes back to neutral. Open your knees nice and wide to take a little bit of an extended child's pose, wide knee child's pose. Now you might have found that pretty easy to do on the first side, and then sometimes we get to the second side and it's like, holy moly, I can't even do this on the other side. So I want you to take your time as we move into the left leg on top. So we'll come back to that all fours position. Our left knee comes forward, and then we'll bring that left foot over to the right side of the mat. So it's making an angular position. Then the right foot knee tucks behind the left, and your right foot goes to the left side of your mat. So you have a little crisscross type of position here. And then you're going to start to walk yourself back. You might be able to plop down really easily. I'm going to have to get my blanket back underneath my sit bones. And then I'll be able to lower myself down. All right, take your time. Please go slow. Make sure this feels okay for you. It's not an easy pose to do unless you have very, very flexible hips and no problems with your knees being able to bend those full amounts. All of that work into being able to do this pose. So wherever you are today, let's just hold and breathe. Say you get into this and it's like all of a sudden, no, then I just want you to bring your hands down and shift some body weight off of the seat so you can come slightly out of that pose. You'll still really get the benefits. Let's hold 2 more breaths on this side. And then very slowly and carefully make your way out of the pose. If you're on your back again, go through that process of releasing the feet. If you're seated, walk those hands forward. We can remove our props. And folding the right leg first, and then the left. Bring the toes to touch, open the knees, coming into an extended child's pose. So that is another way to get into our cow face. But cow face pose also involves the upper body in the fullness of the pose, and we have a stretch for our arms. And it's a nice heart opener. So let's come up and find a comfortable seat. You can sit on a blanket. You can actually sit up in a chair if you'd like. You can sit cross-legged, legs extended out in front of you. Just be comfortable. And I think most of us probably need our yoga strap for cow face. I know that I do. It's not necessary though. You can do this pose without the strap, but it does definitely help. So let's take our right arm and hold on to the strap and extend that arm up as high as we can and dangle the strap behind the back. And then bend your elbow as far as you can, and you're going to notice this nice stretch through the tricep. And you can also give this elbow some assistance by grabbing it with the other hand and pulling it back a little bit just to create a little bit more of a stretch, as long as that feels okay. And then let that go. Then the left hand, the thumb turns in and down. So we come to internal rotation, and we're going to reach back behind the back pretty low to start until we find our yoga strap there. And I like to start low because we can always inch the hands closer together, and I don't want to wrench that shoulder. So now start to creep your hands closer and closer together along that strap until you feel you have a nice, comfortable stretch. And sit up tall. Now, if you're pretty tight in this pose, your elbow might look more like this, and that's okay. That's where you are today with your range of motion. So I want you to feel this is okay for your shoulder and your body. Now, to stretch a little bit deeper, I'm going to take a little side bend over to the left, which is going to open up that stretch along the lat muscle and along the tricep. And the right sitting bone stays down, and we'll hold here 2 more breaths. And 1 more breath, inhale. And exhale, we rise up. It's always important to release the bottom arm first. So just relax the tension in your hand, let your hand slide downward, and then open out. The top arm releases as well. Pause and take a moment. Roll the shoulders a couple of times, maybe each direction. And then move that yoga strap into the left hand. And lift it up, reach. Dangle it behind your back, nice and long. Give yourself a little bit of extra press, either from the front here, or you can pull from the back, depending on your stretchiness today. And then the right hand, the thumb turns down, so we come into inward rotation. Reach low behind your tailbone until you find your strap, and then start to work your fingertips closer and closer to one another. Now, it's usually tighter when our dominant hand is the one that's behind our back. So I would say for most of you, unless you're left-handed, this one that you're doing now is probably your tighter side. And let's go ahead and take our side stretch over. If that feels comfortable for you, it's just a little extra if you'd like to take it. Now, sometimes when we do this pose, there's a tendency for our head to drop down. I want you to press the back of your head back there into that hand or forearm that's behind your head to keep your head in neutral. And a couple more breaths here. Use the core strength to rise back up. Release the tension in your bottom arm first. Let your hands slide down toward your tailbone and then out, and release the top arm as well. Relax and notice the stretch. Maybe roll your shoulders a couple of times each direction. So ultimately, we put cow face arms together with cow face legs. And that can be very hard for some of us to do. So I'm going to give you a lot of options today. So we're going to start with the left foot extended out to straight. If you prefer to stay in your chair, you can do the same thing sitting down. If you'd like, you can leave this left knee open like tree pose for what we're going to do today, if it feels more comfortable for you. If you'd like to go into a half cow face, this knee comes up and crosses completely over the top of the left thigh, and it's crossing above the knee. You're kind of stacking those knees together. Your foot's tucked under a little bit, and you have a slight flexion in your ankle. So this is half cow face. If you want to do the full leg, then you're going to slightly rotate over onto your left hip. You're going to tuck this left leg underneath you on the other side and then come to sit. But my right knee doesn't like that today because I'm sitting on the floor and not my prop. So I'm going to stay with one leg extended to half cow face. All right. So this right knee is on top. So once again, we're going to have the right arm to fold behind us. So let's take that yoga strap one more time. Reach the right arm up, stretch it back, add any assistance you need to get in place. Reach back behind you, inch those fingers together, and sit tall. And then our option here when we're stretching through the upper body is going to be to slightly fold forward. And you'll notice when you do that, that creates more of a stretch in the left arm shoulder. As you fold forward, it pulls that strap up and it gives you a deeper stretch in the front of the shoulder. So keep in mind, if that's not okay for you, you're going to stay upright. And we'll hold here and breathe. Obviously, if you're folding forward and you have the bottom leg extended straight like mine, you're going to get some hamstring flexibility. So each position has its specific benefits. And our last breath in. Exhale. Rising up, release the bottom arm slowly first. For my dancers, you know what that is, right? It's the hammer lock. And come on down. Oh, that can be intense after a while if we're super tight. So we'll unfold that top leg. Maybe shake out the legs a little bit. And then you decide what you want to do on this side. Maybe you're taking tree. You can do it the same way with this knee open. This feels better for you. Or we can cross that leg over, stacking the knees. Or we can shift over and bring both underneath us. This side's a little bit easier for me to do. But since I did it with my other leg straight, I'm going to go back and repeat that so that I'm a little bit more even in what I'm doing today. All right, so once you find the one that works best for you and you're not in any pain, no discomfort, just a mild stretch, we'll take that strap into the left hand, reach it up, drop it behind, make sure your head is in neutral, pull that elbow back if you need some assistance, inwardly rotate to reach the strap, walk your fingertips together to find your edge. And you might be going a little further on this second time. And then your option is to hinge forward. And we'll hold. And again, make sure that's feeling okay on your right shoulder because that can really create a big stretch there. And shoulders can be tricky, so we don't want to do anything at all to injure or to strain those shoulders. And wherever you're at, take 2 more breaths here. And inhale back up. Release the bottom arm first from our hammerlock. And top arm relaxes down. Releasing the yoga strap. And then unfold the left leg. And then maybe shake out those legs a little bit. And then we'll come into Baddha Konasana. This means bound angle pose. It's our butterfly pose. We'll bring the soles of the feet together and allow the knees to open out. And for the starting of this pose, I'd like you to, using your ankles, to pull your feet as closely to your groin as you feel comfortable. If you have a problem bending your knees a whole lot, that's, you'll be further away from the groin, but just wherever you feel comfortable as closely as you can be. And then we can continue to hold at the ankles. We want to stay away from grabbing our feet and pulling up because that creates too much tension on that talofibular ligament. So we're going to lift the heart and then actively press the knees down by engaging your glutes. And hold and breathe. And then release the knees up on an inhale. Exhale, press the knees out. And you're using your glutes to do that, but you can also apply a little bit of pressure with your forearms or your elbows, as long as it feels comfortable and not forced. And then inhale to release those knees up. Last time, exhale, press the knees out and away from each other. Holding. And one more breath here. And relax. Let your knees come together. So we are going to do frog pose. And frog pose can be a little bit uncomfortable. And I always love to give options. If you're like, no frog for me today, what else can I do? You're going to come back into our butterfly, but instead of your feet being close to your groin, I want you to walk your knees out a little bit and separate your feet. And this is going to be your frog. So you're either sitting up doing frog like this, or we're going to come onto the knees onto your mat. Now for me, when I do frog on the mat and I'm on a hard surface, I really need to have some padding for my knees. So I'm going to open up my yoga blanket here. And frog pose is very hard for me, so I'm not going to be able to get down too much. But what we want to do in frog is we are going to separate our knees pretty wide here. And I'm going to bring my hands to the mat in order to do that. Ideally in frog, your toes are pointing out, but that does put a lot of rotation in your knees, not not too happy. My knees are not too happy doing that. So I'm going to keep my feet more relaxed and not point them out and just let this happen from my hips. So we're going to walk those knees out as wide as we can. And you may stay up here on your frog, or you can bring your chair in front of you and put your hands up on your chair. And then I want you to just play with this stretch and see where it feels best for you. You might bring your elbows down to the mat. You might drop your hips back towards your feet a little bit by rocking back a little bit. Or you might rock your hips forward a little bit. I want you to find where you feel a stretch for you, somewhere you can hold and breathe. And again, that seated position with your knees a little bit wider and your feet slightly apart really does a great job for this pose as well. Maybe over time you can inch your knees a little bit wider here up from the kneeling position. We'll just hold 3 more breaths. And then take your time to come out of that frog very gently, pressing yourself up. Let your knees walk in toward each other. And then we'll transition down onto our back to finish our practice today. Coming down on a nice long spine in neutral position. We'll take our Baddha Konasana and bring it onto our back into reclined Baddha Konasana. So now we'll do our butterfly position here by allowing the soles of the feet to touch and the knees to open. Now, depending on your flexibility, your knees might be up pretty high. Sometimes I like to use yoga blocks to support my knees in this position. So we can take blocks or little hand towels or something and roll them up and place them underneath the thighs so that you're a little bit supported. Or you can let them just suspend in the air, but you want to make sure you're not tightening the muscles of your inner thighs and you're allowing them to relax. And then we'll come back into our chest expansion position, which is our goalpost arms or W arms. And notice how tight you are through your shoulders here. Some of you may be able to very easily allow your entire arms to find the mat in this position. Other people, your arms might be up here floating, and that's your flexibility. So I want you to adjust the position of your arms so that you can find that they're on the mat in some way. So that might mean that you have to lower them down a little more, or that you have to straighten your arms out to the side, because I want you to be able to relax here in this pose. And then just close your eyes for a moment, bring your awareness to the breathing. And allow the belly to float up as you inhale, to fall and soften as you exhale. Then bring your awareness to your hips, as we have used several poses today to release tension and stress in the hips. Allowing those hips to open, creating freedom in the joint, freedom in the muscles, and perhaps freedom in our emotional well-being as well. Freedom in our thought process and freedom in our internal awareness of our entire body. And bring your awareness to your heart center as we open our heart. Pausing for a moment to reflect on something or someone you're especially grateful for today. expressing that gratitude from our hearts, allowing our hearts to be open and at peace, full of love and happiness and joy. We'll remain here for 2 more breaths. And then we'll close the arms first, bringing the hands to your abdomen. Closing your knees, and if you need to use your hands to kind of help, you can do that as well by pulling those knees together. And then hug your knees up to heart center. Circle your knees to the right, down, to the left, and around. A little nice massage for your lower back. And then reverse. Circle the knees to the left, down, to the right, and around. And then we'll come into a half happy baby. So I want you to keep your right knee with you. Let your left leg extend all the way down to your mat, and then straighten your leg until you have about a 90-degree bend in your knee. You're going to pull that knee over to your right shoulder. Take your right arm and put it on the inside of your knee, but grab the outside of your foot. If that's not accessible, you take your yoga strap, place it under the bottom of your foot, and then you can pull the strap down. So the knee is outside of the shoulder. The knee is bent about 90 degrees, so we don't want to see this pose looking like this. We do want to have the foot in direct alignment with the ceiling, and we pull that knee down. If we were to flip this over, this would be our dragon pose in yin. But on our back, we can use the strength of our arm to pull the leg down rather than our body weight pushing into that stretch. So this is much more relaxing. And hold one more breath on this side. And then either releasing the foot or the yoga strap, hug both knees back up to the chest. And then allow your right leg to go all the way down to the mat. You're releasing that stretch. And this should feel good after we just did that half happy baby, to let that stretch go. Bring your left knee over to the outside of your armpit there. And then bend that knee about 90 degrees so your foot is facing up to the ceiling. Your left arm comes to the inside of the knee, but your left hand reaches the outside of your foot. And then we'll pull that knee down or wrap your yoga strap around the bottom of the foot and use it as an accessory here. Noticing any differences you might have from right and left sides in that hip flexibility. As we open the hip into deep flexion, and we breathe. Eyes can be closed. The breath moves slowly. Twice more. And then release that left foot. Allow your left leg to meet the right down onto the floor so that we relax the tension in the front of the hip. The legs can separate a little bit more and the toes roll out as we'll take a brief Shavasana.
What's going on?
Here.
If you could come help me with my computer whenever you get a chance this morning.
Oh, okay.
If I'm interrupting
And
you.
although it's time to close our practice, if you need more time here, just relaxing on your back, I want you to feel comfortable staying as you are. You don't have to sign out of class. You can just relax.
Okay.
Because I think they're doing a lot of schooling at home, and she's got a group of people organized.
Yeah, nobody's
But
in
it
class.
has I bought it in 2018 for $200. And so
If you're following my voice, we'll begin to move and take your arms and reach them way above your head. Take a nice full body stretch.
Yes.
Maybe even allowing your lower back to lift up a little bit more and your rib cage to lift up off the mat. A couple breaths as you really reach and expand. And then choose the way you'd like to come to a seated position. You can roll over here to your side and press yourself up, or you can bring both knees up to your chest and rock yourself up to seated. Coming back to a comfortable seat. And then we'll close our eyes just for a few breaths, noticing the body, specifically our hips and our hearts. And we'll take one more chest expansion with the arms in that goalpost or W, pulling the shoulder blades back. Expand. Inhale. And as you exhale, close the palms into Namaste or our Anjali Mudra, bowing the chin to the chest as we express our gratitude for this opportunity to practice together virtually. And the peace that resides within me honors the peace in each and every one of you. Namaste. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. If you can hang with me for a couple of minutes and chat, that would be excellent. If not, I'll see you on Friday for cardio. We have pyramid training. Thanks, everyone.